Dr. Kim Dae-hyun floated in his salvage suit 300 kilometers above Europa's frozen surface, watching pieces of humanity's greatest fleet drift past him like metal snow. 3 months had passed since the Battle of Europa ended in complete disaster. 3 months since the Vorthak Empire had crushed Earth's defense forces in less than 4 hours. The alien ships had come without warning, massive vessels that seemed to bend light around their hulls, firing weapons that passed through human shields like they were made of paper. Admiral Chen's entire fleet had fought bravely, but it was like throwing rocks at a hurricane. When the battle ended, 47 human warships had been destroyed. The Vorthak had lost exactly 0. Now Dae-hyun drifted among the wreckage, leading the most important salvage mission in human history. His team worked in silence around him, cutting apart twisted metal and collecting anything that might be useful. But Dae-hyun was not looking for human technology. He was hunting for something far more valuable. "Found another piece," came Dr. Park Hyeman's voice through the comm system. She was 30 meters away, working near the remains of the battleship, Seoul. "Same material as the others. It does not match anything in our databases." Dae-hyun pushed off from a broken hull plate and drifted toward her position. Dr. Lee Woo-jin was already there, running his scanner over a twisted piece of metal that gleamed with an impossible silver-blue color. The fragment was roughly the size of a dinner plate, but it felt wrong somehow, like it existed in more dimensions than human eyes could see. "This is definitely Vorthak," Woo-jin said, his voice filled with excitement. "Look at these readings. The atomic structure keeps shifting. It should not be possible." Dae-hyun took the fragment carefully. Even through his thick gloves, he could feel something strange about the metal. It seemed to vibrate at a frequency that his bones could sense, but his instruments could not detect. This was the 4th piece of alien technology they had found today. Each one was a puzzle that could change everything. "Keep looking," he told his team. "The military thinks we are just collecting scrap metal for recycling. They have no idea what we have really found." The official story was simple, as Earth Command wanted all useful materials recovered from the battle site. Metal was expensive, and the war effort needed every resource. But Dae-hyun knew the truth was different. The generals were already planning to rebuild the same kinds of ships that had failed so completely. They wanted to make the fleet bigger, not better. That was why Dae-hyun had requested this assignment. While everyone else was focused on counting their losses, he was focused on learning from them. The Vorthak had won because their technology was superior in every way. If humanity wanted to survive the next attack, they needed to understand how the technology worked. "Chief, you need to see this," Yemen called from inside the wreckage of a cruiser. Dae-hyun propelled himself through the twisted metal corridors of the dead ship. Emergency lighting cast strange shadows on the walls. He found Hyeman in what used to be the main engineering section, staring at something that made his heart skip a beat. It was a Vorthak fighter craft, somehow wedged inside the human ship's hull. The alien vessel was maybe 10 meters long, shaped like a teardrop made of flowing metal. Most of it was damaged, but large sections were still intact. The hull showed the same impossible silver-blue color as the fragments they had been collecting. "How did it get inside?" Woo-jin asked, floating up behind them. Dae-hyun studied the wreckage carefully. The human ship's hull had been torn open, but the edges of the hole were smooth, not melted by weapons fire or ripped by collision. It looked like the metal had simply moved out of the way. "It phased through," he said quietly. "The alien ship can change the properties of matter. That is how they got past our shields. They did not break through them, they just walked around them." Yamin ran her scanner over the alien hull. "The readings are incredible. This material exists in at least 4 dimensions, maybe more. Our instruments can only detect 3 of them. They worked for 6 hours to extract the fighter from the human wreckage. Every piece was carefully packed and labeled. By the time they finished, Dae-hyun had made a decision that would change the course of human history. "We are not taking this back to Earth," he announced. Woo-jin looked shocked. "But the regulations clearly state that all recovered materials must be delivered to Earth Command for analysis. Earth Command will study this for 10 years and produce a report that says it cannot be understood," Dae-hyun replied. They will lock it away in some vault and forget about it while they build more ships that will fail just as badly as these did. He gestured at the wreckage surrounding them. The Vorthak will return, maybe in a year, maybe in 5 years, but they will come back to finish what they started. When they do, humanity needs to be ready with something better than bigger guns and thicker armor. Hyemen was quiet for a moment, then nodded slowly. What do you want to do? There is an abandoned mining facility on Ceres, deep underground, completely automated. The mining company went bankrupt 2 years ago, but the basic infrastructure is still intact. We can set up a research lab there away from Earth Command oversight. That would be illegal, Wu Jin pointed out. So was the American Revolution, Dae-hyun said. Sometimes breaking the law is the only way to save your country. They spent the next 2 days carefully moving the alien technology to their transport ship. The official manifest listed everything as recovered human materials for recycling. Nobody questioned their paperwork. Nobody looked too closely at the sealed cargo containers. As their ship left the Europa system, Dae-hyun took one last look at the debris field. Thousands of tons of twisted metal marked the graves of 40,000 human spacers. Good people who had died because their leaders had refused to accept that the old ways of thinking were no longer enough. He would not let their sacrifice be meaningless. The journey to Ceres took 8 days. They used the time to study the alien fragments, learning what they could with portable equipment. Each discovery raised 10 new questions. The Vorthak materials seemed to respond to electrical fields in ways that defied physics. They could become harder than diamond or softer than clay, depending on how they were stimulated. When they arrived at the abandoned mining facility, Dae-hyun felt like he was arriving at humanity's future, deep beneath Ceres' rocky surface. Hidden from satellites and patrol ships, they would unlock the secrets of Vorthak technology. They would learn to build ships that could fight on equal terms with the alien empire. As they unpacked the first container of alien materials, Hyemen activated a piece of hull plating with a simple electrical charge. The metal began to shift and flow like liquid mercury, then suddenly became rigid again. But now it was transparent, allowing them to see the complex crystalline structures inside. "It is beautiful," she whispered. Dae-hyun nodded, but his thoughts were focused on the future. Beauty would not save humanity from extinction. Only understanding would do that. And they had a lot of understanding to gain before the Vorthak returned. The work began immediately. 6 months had passed since Dr. Kim Dae-hyun and his team arrived at the abandoned mining facility on Ceres. The asteroid's low gravity made moving heavy equipment easier, but it also made everything feel strange and dreamlike. Scientists floated, rather than walked, and coffee had to be drunk through specially designed cups that prevented the liquid from drifting away. The facility itself had been transformed. What once housed mining equipment now contained the most advanced research laboratory in the solar system. Banks of computers hummed constantly, analyzing data from the alien technology. Workbenches held pieces of Vorthak metal that still defied every law of physics known to humanity. Dae-hyun's team had grown. 2 new scientists had joined their secret project, both outcasts from mainstream research who had been willing to risk everything for the chance to study impossible technology. Dr. Choi Min-jae had been a military engineer, until Earth Command discharged him for making unauthorized modifications to weapon systems. His crime was thinking outside the box, something the military did not appreciate. But Dae-hyun appreciated it very much. Min-jae had an ability to see how different technologies could work together in ways their original designers never intended. Dr. Yang Soo-young was even more controversial. She had spent years studying the connection between human consciousness and computer systems. Her theories about machines that could think and respond to human thoughts had made her colleagues uncomfortable. Universities had refused to fund her research, calling it impossible and dangerous. But impossible was exactly what they needed to understand. "The Vorthak do not build their ships," Soo-young announced during their morning briefing. She was floating near a holographic display that showed the internal structure of the alien fighter they had recovered. "They grow them." The statement hung in the air like a challenge to reality itself. "Explain," Dae-hyun said. Soo-young manipulated the hologram, zooming in on what looked like a circuit board made of living tissue. These are not electronic components. They are biological structures that can conduct electricity and process information. The entire ship is part machine, part organism. It can repair itself, adapt to new situations, and even learn from experience. Woojin shook his head in amazement. That should be impossible. Biological systems cannot survive in space. They need air, water, warmth. Human biological systems need those things, Hyemin corrected. But the Vorthak have created something different. These organic components can survive in vacuum and radiation. They can function at temperatures that would kill any Earth creature. Minjae was studying readouts from his latest experiments. It gets stranger. I have been testing the weapon systems from the fighter. They do not fire the same way twice. Each shot adapts based on what the target is made of. If you shoot at steel, the energy beam becomes optimized for melting steel. If you shoot at ceramic armor, it changes to shatter ceramics. How is that possible? Daehyun asked. The weapon system thinks, Minjae replied. It analyzes the target in the microseconds before firing, then adjusts its output to be most effective. It is like having a gunsmith who can modify your weapon for each individual shot. But the most important breakthrough came from Woojin's analysis of the ship's propulsion system. He had been studying fragments of what appeared to be the engine core for weeks, growing more excited with each discovery. The Vorthak ships do not move through space the way our ships do, he explained to the team. They exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Most of the ship remains in normal space, but parts of it can shift into other dimensions where the laws of physics work differently. He pulled up a complex diagram showing overlapping geometric shapes. Imagine a piece of paper. We live on the surface of the paper, moving in only 2 dimensions. But the Vorthak can step off the paper, move through the 3rd dimension, and step back onto the paper somewhere else. To us, it looks like they teleported. To them, they just took a shortcut. This explained how the alien fighter had ended up inside the human cruiser. It had not crashed through the hull. It had shifted into another dimension, moved through the space occupied by the human ship, then shifted back into normal space while inside the hull. If we can understand this technology, Daehyun said quietly, we can build ships that are effectively immune to conventional weapons. They could phase through incoming fire and reappear behind enemy lines. Soo-young had been working on the most dangerous part of their research. She was attempting to interface directly with the alien control systems, using experimental neural connections to understand how Vorthak pilots operated their ships. The first attempts had been failures. Human brains simply could not process the multidimensional information that the alien systems required. But Soo-young was persistent, gradually developing training techniques that allowed human consciousness to adapt to alien thought patterns. The Vorthak think in mathematics, and she explained after her latest session. Not numbers and equations like we use, but pure mathematical relationships. They see space and time as geometric shapes that can be manipulated. To them, changing course is not about firing thrusters. It is about reshaping the mathematical structure of reality around their ship. The process was exhausting and sometimes dangerous. Soo-young often emerged from the neural interface sessions with severe headaches and temporary disorientation, but each session taught her more about how the alien technology worked. I think I understand their navigation system, she announced one day. They do not use star charts or GPS coordinates. They navigate by sensing the gravitational mathematics of nearby objects. Every planet, every asteroid, every ship creates a unique pattern in spacetime. The Vorthak ships can feel these patterns and use them to know exactly where they are and where they want to go. Minjae had been working on practical applications. Using Soo-young's insights and his own engineering skills, he had begun designing hybrid systems that combined human technology with alien principles. His first prototype was a weapon that could shift between different energy types based on its target, just like the Vorthak systems. It works, he reported after the first successful test. The targeting computer analyzes the material composition of whatever it is aimed at, then adjusts the beam frequency for maximum effectiveness. Against steel armor, it becomes a cutting laser. Against ceramic composites, it becomes a resonance disruptor. But success brought new challenges. The hybrid systems required materials that did not exist on Earth. The organic components needed to be grown rather than manufactured, using biological processes that humanity had never mastered. The multidimensional aspects of the technology required manufacturing techniques that worked in more than 3 dimensions. HFY was tackling the materials problem. She had been experimenting with ways to grow alien-style components using Earth-based biological systems. Her laboratory looked more like a greenhouse than a research facility, filled with tanks of strange liquids where metal and flesh grew together in impossible combinations. "I have successfully grown a control circuit," she announced proudly, holding up what looked like a piece of coral made of silver and gold. "It can process information like a computer chip, but it also responds to electrical fields in ways that allow it to interface with human nervous systems." The breakthrough came when they successfully activated a piece of Vorthak hull plating using their hybrid control system. The metal began to shift and flow, becoming transparent, then opaque, then harder than diamond, then soft as rubber. All controlled by human thought patterns transmitted through the biological interface. "We have done it," Daehyun said, watching the impossible display. "We have learned to speak their language." But their success was about to be interrupted. Long-range sensors detected ships approaching the Ceres system, military vessels, broadcasting Earth Command identification codes. Someone had discovered their secret project. Admiral Jang's voice came through the communication system, cold and official. "Dr. Kim Daehyun, you are ordered to surrender yourself and all recovered materials immediately. You are under arrest for violation of salvage regulations, theft of military property, and conducting unauthorized research." Daehyun looked at his team. They had come so far, learned so much. The secrets of Vorthak technology were finally within their grasp. But now Earth Command wanted to shut them down, to lock away their discoveries in some vault where they would never be used to protect humanity. "What do we do?" HFY asked. Daehyun made a decision that would change everything. Instead of surrendering, he activated the communication system and sent a message that would shock Earth Command to its core. "Admiral Jang," he said calmly, "before you arrest us, you should see what we have accomplished. We have something to show you that will change your mind about the value of unauthorized research." Admiral Jang's military transport docked with the Ceres mining facility with the sharp clang of metal against metal. Through the reinforced windows of the research laboratory, Dr. Kim Daehyun watched 6 armed security officers float through the airlock. Their weapons were drawn, their faces set in hard lines. These were not people who had come to negotiate. "Dr. Kim Daehyun." Admiral Jang's voice echoed through the facility's communication system. "You have 30 seconds to surrender yourself and all stolen materials, or we will take them by force." Daehyun looked at his team. Dr. Park HFY was clutching a datapad containing 6 months of breakthrough research. Dr. Lee Woo-jin stood near their prototype control system, his hand hovering over the emergency shutdown switch. Dr. Choi Min-jae and Dr. Yang Soo-young flanked the entrance to the laboratory, ready to defend their work with their lives if necessary. "Admiral Jang," Daehyun replied through the intercom, "I understand your position, but before you arrest us, I want to show you something that will change how you think about Earth's defense. You have violated direct orders and stolen military property," Jang responded. "There is nothing you can say that will excuse your actions. What if I could show you a ship that can defeat an entire Vorthak squadron single-handed?" The silence that followed stretched for nearly a minute. Finally, Jang's voice came back, more curious than angry. "Explain." Daehyun gestured to his team. They had prepared for this moment, hoping they would have more time but ready to demonstrate their achievements if necessary. "Give us 1 hour, Admiral. 1 hour to show you what 6 months of unauthorized research has accomplished. If you are not convinced that our work can save humanity, we will surrender without resistance." Another long pause. 1 hour, but my security team remains armed and ready. Understood. The next 60 minutes would determine whether humanity's greatest breakthrough would be buried in military bureaucracy or used to save the species from extinction. Daehyun turned to his team and saw the same determination in their eyes that had driven them through months of impossible research. Minjae, prep the shuttle, he ordered. Full hybrid configuration. Their prototype vessel sat in the facility's small docking bay, looking like nothing anyone had ever seen before. It was roughly the size of a standard transport shuttle, but its hull flowed like liquid metal, shifting between silver and blue in patterns that seemed to follow no earthly logic. Organic-looking conduits ran along its surface, pulsing with soft light. It looked more grown than built, more alive than mechanical. The ship was their greatest achievement, combining human engineering with Vorthak biological technology and multidimensional physics. Every system had been painstakingly reverse-engineered and improved upon. It was not just a copy of alien technology. It was something entirely new. "Admiral, if you would please observe from the facility's main viewing port," Daehyun announced. Admiral Zhang and his security team positioned themselves at the reinforced windows overlooking the docking bay. Zhang was a veteran of 30 years of military service, a man who had seen every type of spacecraft humanity had ever built, but even he could not hide his amazement at what he was seeing. "What kind of hull material is that?" he asked. "A hybrid of human carbon fiber composites and Vorthak biometal," Yemen explained. "It can shift between different molecular configurations depending on what the ship needs. Armor when under attack, transparency when stealth is required, conductivity when interfacing with other systems." Soo-young took her position at the prototype's neural interface chair. The connection system looked disturbing to anyone who had never seen it before. Biological components grew directly into the pilot's skull, creating a direct link between human consciousness and alien technology. But it was the only way to operate a ship that thought in multiple dimensions. "Beginning neural interface," she announced, settling into the chair as organic tendrils connected to the ports behind her ears. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The prototype's hull began to pulse with light that seemed to come from within the metal itself. The ship lifted off from the docking platform without using any visible thrusters, hovering in perfect stability as gravitational fields manipulated the space around it. "How is it flying without engines?" Zhang demanded. "It does not push against space," Wu Jin explained. "It reshapes the geometry of space-time around itself. Gravity becomes propulsion, physics becomes navigation." But Admiral Zhang had not become a fleet commander by being easily impressed. "Impressive technology, but can it fight?" That was the question Daehyun had been hoping for. "Minjae, activate the combat demonstration program." What happened next defied everything Admiral Zhang thought he knew about space combat. The prototype split itself, not physically, but dimensionally. Parts of the ship existed in normal space, while other parts phased into parallel dimensions, becoming invisible and untouchable. Weapon systems emerged from the hull like flowers blooming in fast motion, each one adapting its configuration for different types of targets. "My God," Zhang whispered. The ship's weapons began firing at holographic targets that Minjae had projected throughout the docking bay. But these were not normal weapons. Each beam of energy was different, perfectly optimized for its specific target. One beam cut through projected steel armor like a hot knife through butter. Another shattered ceramic composites with resonant frequencies. A third somehow bent space itself, creating gravitational distortions that would crush any normal spacecraft. But the most impressive display was the ship's defensive capabilities. When Minjae activated simulated enemy fire, the prototype simply was not there anymore. It existed in a state between dimensions, allowing the attacks to pass harmlessly through empty space while the ship remained perfectly positioned to return fire. "This is impossible," Zhang said, but his voice carried awe rather than disbelief. "6 months ago we would have agreed," Daehyun replied. "But impossibility is a human concept. The Vorthak have shown us that the universe is far stranger and more wonderful than we ever imagined." The demonstration concluded with the prototype performing maneuvers that violated every law of physics taught in human academies. It stopped instantly without deceleration, changed direction without turning, and moved through solid barriers by shifting partially out of normal reality. Soo-young disconnected from the neural interface, her face pale but triumphant. "The ship responds to thought as easily as your body responds to your will. It is not just a machine you operate. It is a partner you work with." Admiral Zhang was quiet for several minutes, staring at the prototype as it settled back onto its docking platform. When he finally spoke, his voice was completely different from the angry authority figure who had arrived to arrest them. "How quickly can you build more of these?" Daehyun felt relief flood through him. They had won. Earth Command would not shut down their research. Instead, they would expand it into the most important military project in human history. "That depends on resources and support," he replied. "The manufacturing process is unlike anything humanity has ever attempted. We need to grow components rather than build them. We need materials that exist in multiple dimensions. We need pilots who can learn to think like aliens." "Whatever you need," Zhang said immediately. "Personnel, funding, materials, facilities. This project becomes Earth's highest priority." "There is one more thing," Daehyun said carefully. "Intelligence reports suggest the Vorthak are preparing another invasion fleet. We have perhaps 18 months before they return in force." Zhang nodded grimly. "Then we have 18 months to build a fleet that can do what our old ships could not. 18 months to give humanity a fighting chance." The prototype ship powered down, its hull settling into a stable silver configuration. But even at rest, it seemed to pulse with hidden life, ready to spring back into impossible action at a moment's notice. "What do you call it?" Zhang asked. Daehyun looked at the vessel that represented humanity's future, their hope for survival against impossible odds. It was neither fully human nor alien, but something new and unprecedented. "We call it the Indomitable," he said. "And it is going to save our species." Admiral Zhang was already on his communicator, speaking in rapid, urgent tones to Earth Command. Within hours, the most massive construction project in human history would begin. Shipyards would be retooled, scientists recruited, pilots trained. The hybrid fleet that would face the returning Vorthak would be unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The age of impossible ships was about to begin. 12 months after Admiral Zhang had witnessed the impossible demonstration on Ceres, Earth's orbital shipyards hummed with activity that defied description. Where once human engineers had assembled ships from metal and electronics, now they cultivated vessels in vast biomechanical chambers that stretched for kilometers around every major planet. Dr. Kim Dae-hyun floated through the primary growing facility above Mars, watching humanity's new fleet take shape in ways that still amazed him. The ships did not look like anything from human military history. They resembled giant sea creatures more than spacecraft, their hulls flowing in organic curves that seemed to breathe and pulse with inner life. "Indomitable reports successful completion of Patrol Route 7, came the voice of Captain Kang Ji-woo through the facility's communication system. "No hostile contacts, but the ship detected unusual gravitational fluctuations near Jupiter's fourth moon." Daehyun paused in his inspection to consider this report. The hybrid ships had developed capabilities that even their creators had not expected. They could sense disturbances in space-time that human instruments could not detect. They anticipated orders before their crews gave them. Some pilots reported that their ships seemed to dream. "Any explanation for the gravitational anomalies?" Daehyun asked. "Indomitable believes they are caused by dimensional stress fractures," Ji-woo replied. "The ship thinks something large is moving through parallel space near our reality." This was troubling news. Long-range sensors had detected no sign of the Vorthak invasion fleet, but the hybrid ships were sensing disturbances that suggested massive objects moving through dimensions that normal space did not touch. The enemy might be closer than anyone realized. Daehyun continued his tour through the growing chambers, observing the birth of humanity's strangest weapons. The ships took 6 months to mature from their initial biomechanical seeds. During that time, they developed unique characteristics based on the mental patterns of their intended crews. Captain Park Suna's ship, the Relentless, had grown aggressive configurations. Its weapon systems were more numerous and powerful than the original design specifications. The hull had developed additional armor plating that resembled scales or thorns. Even at rest, it looked ready for battle. In contrast, Commander Lee Tae-young's vessel, the Serenity, had evolved along different lines. Its hull was smoother, more elegant, with sensor arrays that were twice as sensitive as any other ship in the fleet. It had become optimized for reconnaissance and stealth, able to phase almost completely out of normal space when necessary. Each ship is becoming specialized, Dr. Yang Soo-young explained as she joined Daehyun near the newest growing chamber. They adapt to their crew's personalities and combat preferences. The neural interfaces create a feedback loop between human consciousness and alien technology. Is that safe? Daehyun asked. Soo-young's expression was troubled. We are not sure. Some pilots report that they can feel their ship's thoughts even when they are not connected to the neural interface. Others say they dream in mathematics and wake up understanding spatial relationships they never learned. This was the price of their breakthrough. The hybrid technology was changing the humans who used it as much as it was changing the ships themselves. Pilots who spent too much time connected to their vessels began to think differently, to perceive reality in ways that normal humans could not comprehend. Dr. Choi Min-jae had been working on solutions to the psychological challenges. His latest project was a training program that gradually introduced human pilots to alien thought patterns, allowing them to adapt slowly instead of being overwhelmed by sudden exposure to multidimensional thinking. The key is balance, he explained to a group of new recruits. You must learn to think like your ship without losing your humanity. The Vorthak technology responds to consciousness, but it needs human creativity to reach its full potential. The training was difficult and dangerous. Some candidates could not handle the mental strain of interfacing with technology that existed in multiple dimensions. Others adapted too well, becoming so focused on alien mathematics that they lost touch with human emotions and instincts. But those who successfully completed the program became something unprecedented in human history. They could pilot ships that defied physics, fight battles across multiple dimensions, and work in partnership with vessels that had become more than mere machines. Captain Ji-woo was one of the most successful examples. He had been flying the Indomitable for 8 months, and the bond between pilot and ship had grown stronger each day. He often reported that the ship would begin evasive maneuvers before he consciously realized they were under attack, or that it would target enemy weak points that his human eyes could not see. Flying the Indomitable is like having a conversation with someone who speaks a language you are still learning, he explained to Daehyun during a routine briefing. Sometimes I give it orders, sometimes it gives me suggestions, sometimes we both have the same idea at exactly the same moment. But the most remarkable development was what Dr. Park Hye-min had discovered about the fleet's collective behavior. The ships were sharing information with each other through quantum-entangled communication networks that operated faster than light. Each battle experience, each tactical innovation, each technical modification was instantly available to every other ship in the fleet. They are learning as a group, she reported during the weekly staff meeting. When Relentless developed a new weapon configuration during combat training, Serenity and Indomitable both incorporated similar modifications within hours. The entire fleet is becoming smarter and more capable with every passing day. This collective intelligence was both humanity's greatest advantage and its greatest risk. The ships were evolving beyond their original design parameters, developing capabilities that even their creators did not fully understand. Some modifications were clearly beneficial, improving combat effectiveness and defensive capabilities. Others were more mysterious, serving purposes that human minds could not grasp. The fleet's growing abilities became apparent during a large-scale training exercise near Saturn. 12 hybrid ships were conducting mock battles against simulated Vorthak forces when something unexpected happened. The ships began coordinating their actions without any communication from their human crews. They moved in perfect synchronization, each vessel anticipating the other's actions and responding accordingly. Their tactics were more sophisticated than anything human military doctrine had ever produced. They fought as a single organism with multiple bodies, sharing sensors and weapons in ways that multiplied their individual capabilities. It was beautiful and terrifying, reported Commander Song Min-ji after the exercise. I felt like I was part of something much larger than myself. My ship knew what the other ships were going to do before they did it. We moved like a school of fish, like a flock of birds, like something that had evolved to hunt together. But the most significant development came when long-range sensors finally detected what the hybrid ships had been sensing for weeks. The Vorthak invasion fleet was approaching the outer solar system, moving through parallel dimensions to avoid detection by conventional instruments. The enemy force was massive, far larger than the fleet that had destroyed humanity's defenses at Europa. Thousands of alien warships, each one capable of devastating entire planets. They had come not to conquer but to exterminate, to ensure that humanity could never again threaten the Vorthak Empire's technological supremacy. "How long do we have?" Admiral Zhang asked during the emergency briefing. 6 weeks, Daehyun replied. "Maybe less. They are moving faster than our models predicted." The hybrid fleet numbered only 43 ships, compared to the thousands approaching from deep space. By any conventional measure, humanity was facing impossible odds. But the ships they had built were not conventional by any measure. "We have advantages the Vorthak do not expect," Captain Jiwoo pointed out. "Our ships can exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. We can phase through their attacks and strike from impossible angles. We have learned to think like them, but they have not learned to think like us." Dr. Su-young had been analyzing captured Vorthak communications. Their strategy appears to be based on their previous victory. They expect to face larger versions of the same ships they destroyed before. They are not prepared for technology that surpasses their own. As the enemy fleet drew closer, the hybrid ships began exhibiting new behaviors. They positioned themselves throughout the solar system, not according to human tactical doctrine, but following patterns that seemed to emerge from their collective consciousness. They were preparing for a type of warfare that had never been fought before. The Indomitable took position near Jupiter, its sensors reaching across multiple dimensions to track the approaching enemy. Relentless and Serenity formed a hunting pair in the asteroid belt, ready to strike at enemy scouts. Dozens of other ships spread throughout the system, each one a fusion of human creativity and alien capability. "The fleet is ready," Daehyun announced. "Ready for a battle that will determine whether humanity survives to see another century." Through the viewports of the Mars facility, he could see several hybrid ships drifting past like enormous sea creatures. Their hulls pulsed with light. The first contact between humanity's hybrid fleet and the Vorthak invasion force did not happen in normal space. It began in the quantum realm, where reality became fluid, and multiple dimensions intersected like layers of glass stacked impossibly. Thin Captain Kang Jiwoo felt the moment of contact through his neural link with the Indomitable. The ship's consciousness touched his mind with sensations that human language could not describe. Colors that had no names, mathematics that felt like music, geometry that existed in spaces the human brain was never meant to comprehend. "Enemy contact," he announced, though the words felt inadequate. "The Vorthak are here." Across the solar system, 43 hybrid ships received the alert simultaneously through their quantum-entangled network. Each vessel responded instantly, their organic hulls shifting into combat configurations that had been growing and evolving for months. Weapon systems emerged like flowers blooming in fast motion. Defensive fields activated across multiple dimensions. The Vorthak fleet was massive beyond anything humanity had faced before. 3,000 warships, each one the size of a small city, moved through parallel space like sharks through dark water. Their hulls gleamed with the same impossible silver-blue metal that humanity had learned to understand and improve upon. But the alien commanders were expecting to face primitive, human technology. Ships that could be destroyed with conventional weapons and overwhelmed by superior numbers. They were not prepared for vessels that existed partially outside normal reality. The battle began when the Vorthak scouts emerged from parallel space near Jupiter. They found the Indomitable waiting for them, its hull shimmering between dimensions, like a mirage made of living metal. The alien ships opened fire immediately, their weapons designed to phase through human shields and armor. The energy beams passed harmlessly through empty space where the Indomitable had been a microsecond before. The hybrid ship had shifted into a parallel dimension, becoming untouchable while remaining perfectly positioned to return fire. Jiwoo felt the ship's weapon systems analyzing the enemy vessels, learning their weaknesses in the time it took light. to travel from one hull to the other. The Indomitable's response was devastating. Energy beams that adapted their frequency in real time, seeking out the resonant frequency of Vorthak hull metal. Gravitational distortions that crushed enemy ships like invisible hands. 3 Vorthak scouts were destroyed in the first exchange. The others retreated in confusion, their commanders unable to understand how human ships could phase through dimensions that only the most advanced Vorthak technology could access. But the invasion fleet's response was swift and overwhelming. Hundreds of warships emerged from parallel space throughout the solar system, their strategy designed to overwhelm human defenses through sheer numbers and superior firepower. They found themselves facing something they had never encountered before. The hybrid fleet did not fight like any military force in galactic history. The ships moved as a single organism, sharing consciousness across impossible distances, coordinating attacks that no individual mind could have planned. Near Mars, Captain Park Suna's ship Relentless encountered a squadron of enemy cruisers. The alien vessels surrounded her position, firing from all directions with weapons that should have been impossible to evade. But Relentless was no longer limited by three-dimensional thinking. The ship split itself across multiple dimensions, parts of its structure existing in parallel realities while other parts remained in normal space. The Vorthak weapons fired at targets that were simultaneously there and not there, present and absent, real and unreal. Relentless struck back with weapons that had evolved beyond their original design. Energy beams that existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, capable of hitting targets regardless of which reality they occupied. Gravitational mines that created distortions across parallel space, trapping enemy ships in mathematical loops they could not escape. The Vorthak squadron was destroyed in minutes, their crews never understanding how they had been defeated by a single human vessel. But the enemy was learning. Vorthak tactical computers began analyzing the new human capabilities, developing countermeasures for weapons and defenses that should not have existed. They deployed new weapon systems that attacked the hybrid ship's consciousness directly, attempting to sever the connection between human crews and alien technology. Some hybrid ships fell silent as their crews were overwhelmed by psychic attacks designed to disrupt the neural interfaces. Others began operating on pure alien instincts, becoming as dangerous to human allies as to Vorthak enemies. Dr. Kim Dae-hyun monitored the battle from the command center on Mars, watching displays that showed combat across multiple dimensions simultaneously. The hybrid fleet was holding its own, but the enemy's numbers were beginning to tell. For every Vorthak ship destroyed, 2 more took its place. "We need something more," he said to Dr. Yang Soo-young, who was coordinating the neural interface networks. "The ships are fighting brilliantly, but we are still outnumbered 70-1. Soo-young was deep in concentration, her consciousness linked to the hybrid fleet's collective network. Through the quantum entanglement, she could feel the thoughts and emotions of every human pilot in the fleet. But she could also sense something else, something that none of them had expected. "The ships are changing," she announced. "They are evolving during the battle. Each engagement is teaching them new capabilities. They are becoming something we never designed. Indeed, throughout the solar system, the hybrid vessels were developing abilities that surpassed anything their creators had imagined." The Indomitable had learned to exist in 7 dimensions simultaneously, making it effectively immortal. Relentless had developed weapons that could rewrite the laws of physics in localized areas of space. Near Saturn, Commander Lee Tai-young's ship Serenity had discovered how to reproduce itself, growing new vessels from the raw materials of destroyed enemy craft. The process was beautiful and terrifying to watch, as organic components spread across Vorthak wreckage like living metal, transforming enemy ships into hybrid allies. "My God," Admiral Jung whispered from the command center. "They are not just winning the battle, they are transcending it." The turning point came when the hybrid fleet began operating as a true collective consciousness. Individual ships merged their awareness into something larger than the sum of their parts. They stopped thinking like separate vessels and began functioning as organs of a single vast organism. The Vorthak found themselves facing an enemy that could predict their tactics before they were implemented, that could coordinate attacks across light years of space instantly, that could adapt to new weapons faster than those weapons could be deployed. The alien fleet's formation began to collapse as hybrid ships struck from impossible angles, their attacks synchronized across multiple dimensions. Vorthak commanders who had conquered half the galaxy found their ships being destroyed by tactics they could not comprehend, weapons they could not defend against, enemies they could not even properly perceive. The climactic moment came when the hybrid fleet's collective consciousness reached a critical threshold. The ships began reproducing at an exponential rate, converting asteroid material and enemy wreckage into new vessels faster than the Vorthak could destroy them. What had begun, as 43 hybrid ships became hundreds, then thousands, each one more advanced than the last. They filled the solar system like a plague of impossible life, their organic hulls pulsing with energies that existed beyond normal physics. The Vorthak Empire, faced with technology that had surpassed their own and continued evolving during combat, made a decision that shocked every species in the galaxy. They withdrew. For the first time in their imperial history, the Vorthak sent a message of surrender rather than a demand for submission. Their transmission was brief and formal, acknowledging humanity as an equal power and requesting negotiations for peaceful coexistence. Dr. Daehyun stood on the observation deck of the Mars Command Center, watching the hybrid fleet spread throughout the solar system like living constellations. The ships no longer looked entirely human or entirely alien. They had become something new, something unprecedented in the galaxy's history. Captain Jiwoo's voice came through the communication system, but it sounded different now, touched with harmonics that suggested multiple speakers talking in perfect unison. "The battle is over," he said. "Humanity is safe, but we are no longer entirely human." Through the viewport, Daehyun could see the Indomitable drifting past, its hull flowing like liquid metal in patterns that suggested both machinery and life. The ship's consciousness touched his mind briefly, sharing a sense of vast contentment and endless possibility. Humanity had not just survived first contact with superior alien technology. They had evolved it, improved it, and in doing so had begun their own evolution into something greater than either species could have achieved alone. The hybrid fleet continued to grow and spread, each ship a unique fusion of human creativity and alien capability. They were no longer just Earth's defenders. They had become the seeds of humanity's transformation into something that could explore the deepest mysteries of the universe. The war was over. The age of evolution had begun.